Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. In today's weather forecast, it is predicted that a typhoon will bring rain throughout the country. This would be bad news for someone like our protagonist, Kanghyun, who was planning to go camping. However, it doesn't matter to him anymore if it rains. He is enjoying his lunch under a sunny day. Soon, some of his friends join him, but they are not like normal people. One is a huge man who must be a hunter or a swordsman, a handsome-looking wolfman, and a quite hungry wolf girl. There's also a pretty elf lady. The weather does not bother Kanghyun anymore because the place he is staying is not on Earth. One day, Kanghyun visits the place where he is going to open a restaurant. He asks his fellow to make sure that there is no one here because last time they let their guard down and they got caught by paparazzi. But his friend says that no one would have followed them this far. Kanghyun thinks that is right, so he gets out of the car and takes off his mask. Right now, wherever he goes, a bunch of people recognize him because he has become a celebrity chef. He graduated from CIA, one of the best cooking schools, won the Paris International Cooking Competition, and somehow got recognized, which resulted in getting love calls from different TV shows. Some people might think since he is a young, competent chef, he has a bright future ahead of him, but things are not as they seem. His fans often rest into hotel kitchens to take a picture of him, and his fellowship does not like it and gets mad at him for disturbing them. They often say if he is trying to look down on people like them who are serious about cooking, and he should have become a celebrity instead of a chef. He often receives hate comments on social media which breaks him down. He is tired of the attention he is getting. So he has decided to move to a remote place and he is happy about it, but he came here to rest. But his friend comments that the people who want to rest do not start businesses, but Kanghyun corrects him that cooking is resting for him. As they unpack their luggage, they get tired and hungry, so Kanghyun says that they have to go out because they cannot order something here. So, they order Korean black bean noodles. Kanghyun is horrified by their look and taste. He cannot believe that they expect humans to eat this, but his friends say that it tastes okay to him. That reminds Kanghyun that he cannot taste food. The doctor has told him that he has lost his sense of taste due to stress. The cause is psychological, so they cannot promise anything through surgery. The doctor suggests him that he should take care of his stress first. Although Kanghyun is worried about the number of customers in this place, there are a lot of mountains and fields that are perfect for camping. So he takes his mini stove, the MacGyver knife, sunscreen, a compass, and a map. The driver asks him if he is going to the beach, but Kanghyun tells him that he is going for camping in the mountains. The driver suggests that he must have brought a tube as well because they do not sell tubes there. Kanghyun asks the driver to go to Yongpyong village. He has a place to stop by. It is his first time coming here after his grandfather's death. He goes to his grandfather's house and thinks he should clean it before he goes. Kanghyun notices that the door of the storage room is open. He thinks it must be a thief, so he goes to check it out, but it turns out to be just a cat. Since no one is managing this place, even wild animals can come in. He enters the house in the dark and feels that something is off about it. It didn't look this big from the outside. Suddenly, he notices a deep abyss and something is blowing in it. He falls asleep and tumbles into the abyss. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself in an enchanted forest. Kanghyun wonders where he is. He notices a little squirrel licking his hands, and to his surprise, the squirrel starts flying with its ears. As Kanghyun tries to comprehend what's happening, a cute rabbit throws something at him. But as the rabbit comes out of the bush, it has the muscular body of a huge man and starts hopping. Kanghyun freaks out and thinks he has to get out. This place is very dangerous. But even after wandering all day, he cannot find the exit and it's already dark. Kanghyun thinks he's done, for there are no people, no phone, no reception here. He recalls the doctor telling him to go camping, not to get lost. But even in this situation, his stomach can't hold back and starts grumbling. Kanghyun can't believe that even in this situation, he feels hungry. So he lights a fire. The problem is all he has is a bag of dried mushrooms, a little can of beer, and some salt and pepper. It was all in his stainless classic camping bag. Kanghyun is relieved that at least he has these. He can't just eat this right away, so he decides to soak it first. He puts the mushrooms in the pan, pours some beer on them, and sautés them. Then he adjusts the taste with some pepper powder and salt, thinking that it's somehow edible now. Normally, he would have spit it out as soon as he put it in his mouth, but it's tasteless to him now. He throws the pan away and becomes depressed. Kanghyun is almost crying at his situation. Suddenly, he notices few pairs of eyes glowing in the bushes. He gets scared, thinking they must belong to wolves, so he grabs his knife, ready to attack. But to his surprise, they vanish. Kanghyun wonders if they disappeared. Then suddenly, he hears a bark. As he turns around, he sees a cute little puppy licking the pan. The puppy is wagging its tail. Kanghyun wonders if it's a dog, then notices its ears and realizes it's a Siberian husky puppy. He's surprised and wonders where it came from. The puppy looks at Kanghyun with anticipation and cuteness in its eyes, but Kanghyun isn't bothered and tells the puppy to leave once it's done eating, as he doesn't particularly like dogs. He admits he doesn't understand why people find dogs cute, saying all this while blushing and patting the dog. Kanghyun wonders if the puppy is wild because its fur is kind of stiff. As he considers its appearance, Kanghyun realizes that it's a wolf. Kanghyun wondered where the wolf's mother might be. Perhaps the wolf he saw earlier was his family. Kanghyun fell to the ground, thinking that according to the dog rules, he would either get eaten or start to believe that he would die anyway. The little girl started pulling Kanghyun by his shirt, making him think if she wanted to eat him now. But the little puppy dragged him to a glowing hole at the bottom of a tree trunk. Kanghyun was surprised and thought that it was the same hole he fell through. He considered going back through it, but was confused because it was heading downwards, so it might be a portal to hell. As he went over to take a look, the baby wolf pushed him down the hole, and suddenly Kanghyun was back in the village. He was happy that he survived. Kanghyun thought that he didn't even get to thank the wolf. He believed that he wouldn't see him again, but would never forget this debt. As he turned his head, he was surprised to see the little wolf standing beside him. So he brought him home, gave him a good shower, and decided to give him a name. Then he went to sleep with this cute little puppy. When Kanghyun woke up the next morning, he was happy and relaxed because he had slept well. He couldn't remember the last time he had slept this well. He brought a bowl of dog food for the little wolf, thinking that he must like it because wolves are also a type of dog, but he didn't like it. Kanghyun tried to give him cat food or rabbit food, but he didn't like any of them. Kanghyun was lost and wondered if he should let this little dog starve. However, he thought that he might be able to take care of his food issues in the process of taking care of him. So he made a good breakfast for himself. Kanghyun thought that he couldn't taste it, but he cooked really hard for this, hoping that there might be some food that he could still taste. The little wolf, whom Kanghyun had named White Rice Cake, jumped at his food and cleared almost all of the dishes. But Kanghyun noticed that Rice Cake was cleverly avoiding all convenience store food and not even salads. He was avoiding steak as well. It made Kanghyun think, and he realized that the steak he just cooked used good quality meat and was cooked through the same method. However, the sauces were different. One was a commercial sauce, while the other was his special sauce that was uploaded in an international cooking competition. Kanghyun put both of the steaks in front of Rice Cake and said if he really knew his gourmet food, he must choose one between these two. Kanghyun thought the commercial sauce was also delicious, but if Rice Cake chose his special sauce, he definitely had the talent to be an Epicurean. Rice Cake ate the commercial sauce steak first, but when he tasted the special recipe, he was excited about it and ate all of it while wagging his tail with happiness. Kanghyun was surprised to see that he was an Epicurean for sure. Kanghyun thought that he couldn't just give him any food from now on. Later on, when Kanghyun was painting his new restaurant location, he thought that the color was a bit off. He couldn't understand what was wrong with this paint. Meanwhile, an old man came and said that it wasn't a surprise since he was painting outside with the paint meant to be used inside. Kanghyun was confused and didn't know who this man was. The old man said that he was the man Kanghyun should greet first when he moved in because he was the head of the village. Since Kanghyun wasn't coming to him, he came here himself to see him. The old man observed closely the wall that Kanghyun was painting and said that he had such poor painting skills. The old man told Kanghyun that he should leave it the way it was, he would get him someone. But Kanghyun thanked the old man and said that he could do it himself. However, the old man insisted that there were people who could do it in this village. He also said that Kanghyun didn't know the value of money and suggested him not to put anything on his casual this weekend and he would get him someone. Later on, the head of the village brought a man to Kanghyun for painting his wall. He introduced him as the son of the Young family who farmed at the field near here. Even though he looked like this, he was really good at painting and his name was Minho. Kanghyun also introduced himself and thanked them for really coming. Kanghyun brought something to drink for them, but was surprised to see that they had already started working. Kanghyun wondered why they were working so hard for a house that wasn't even theirs. The old man asked Kanghyun what kind of restaurant he was going to open here. Kanghyun told him that he was planning on opening an Italian restaurant. Minho asked him if he would sell pork cutlets because his wife liked pork cutlets and the restaurant they always went to was closed. She was pregnant, so they couldn't go far. He tried to make it himself, but the taste was bad. Kanghyun thought that even if it wasn't on the menu, pork cutlets were easy to make. But he thought giving customers food that he didn't know the taste of was nonsense. Perhaps he shouldn't open a restaurant. He looked at his little baby wolf and thought that he could do it. Suddenly, he got excited and said that he would make pork cutlets. At the moment, Kanghyun is preparing pork cutlets. In Minho's opinion, the sauce had a more brownish color than red, and the sweetness of the sauce was due to tomatoes. Kanghyun thinks it appeared as though they were using demi-glace, but the addition of tomatoes would end up making it bitter. In the beginning, Kanghyun was curious about whether or not a store in the countryside would use tomato paste, but then he realized that it must be ketchup. Initially, he believed that the components were already prepared. He was so eager to make these cutlets that he asked Rice Cake to keep his energy levels up so that he could finish them first. After preparing all of the ingredients, Kanghyun fried the cutlets in hot oil and served them with Rice Cake. Kanghyun observed that his tail was more slowly wagging than it had been in the past. He speculated that the sweetness was too intense, so he attempted to make it again, but the results were still insufficient. Kanghyun believed that after he lost his sense of taste, cooking had never been enjoyable for him because he was unable to taste his own dishes. However, from this point forward, he was able to determine how the food tasted, and he found that cooking was enjoyable for him. Additionally, Minho and his wife arrived at the restaurant at a later time. Minho inquired about the degree to which his wife's morning sickness had improved. In her response, his wife stated that everything was fine at this point and mentioned that she had heard that a new restaurant had opened up in the town and that she was looking forward to eating there because it had been quite some time since she had pork cutlets. Afterwards, Kanghyun stated that he needed to sate her excitement, so he served her a plate of freshly prepared cutlets that were served hot. The woman was astonished and remarked that it was a delectable mouthful. Moreover, Kanghyun inquired about the taste of the food as she took her first bite. She mentioned that the restaurant in the countryside was also good, but she thought that this one was significantly better. While the sauce had the same flavor, the meat had a more crispy and juicy texture. This was the first time she had ever tried pork cutlet in this form. When she asked Minho if he remembered their first date, she mentioned that they had pork cutlets on that day as well. She also mentioned that after that occurrence, she began eating pork cutlets more frequently. The reason she didn't really like them before that was probably because she was more interested in the memory of eating pork cutlets with her husband than she was in the cutlets themselves. Rice Cake was lying flat on his back with his stomach bloated from all of the cutlets that he had fed him. Kanghyun was pleased with her response, but then he turned his attention to Rice Cake. According to Kanghyun, he fed him a little bit more than he should have. Kanghyun sat down and contemplated the possibility of serving a customer before the grand opening had caused him to reevaluate his menu. This occurred after the customers had left the establishment. He was considering the possibility of creating a menu that would revolve around the desires of the customers rather than an Italian menu. It is possible to find restaurants similar to this one. However, all of them require reservations and are quite pricey. After that, he turned his attention to rice cake and pondered the fact that he needed to take action regarding him. As Kanghyun pondered whether or not he was experiencing some form of dog depression, he pondered whether or not he ought to take him out for a walk on a daily basis. Given how quickly everything had transpired, Kanghyun inquired of Rice Cake whether he had missed the forest from which he had originated. Kanghyun was contemplating whether or not he ought to have returned the otherworldly animal to its home, but he was concerned that his home would become vacant. Kanghyun tells Rice Cake that he will take him back to his home. That forest causes Kanghyun to experience a panic attack, and he begins to question whether or not he needs to return there. It gives him chills just to think about it sometimes. In spite of the fact that he has stated that he will never return to that location, he finds himself in the woods with a small white rice cake. Kanghyun is pondering the various decisions he has made in his life and is perplexed as to why he is currently present. Kanghyun can't help but wonder if this location is a different dimension, just like it is in the comics, as they continue to explore the forest. When they look around, they find a stunning lake that is surrounded by mountains. Kanghyun is astonished to see this, and he believes that he would experience the same feelings of homesickness if his location was similar to this. Before Kanghyun departs, he approaches Rice Cake and sits down on the shore of the lake. He then informs Rice Cake that he has a present for him. Subsequently, he pulls a small grill out of his backpack and declares that Rice Cake has been of great assistance to him in the preparation of the pork cutlets, and that he will reward him with some expensive meat. He removes 3 large pieces of Wagyu steaks, seasoning them with salt and pepper before grilling them and serving them to Rice Cake. He then serves the steaks to Rice Cake. The statement made by Kanghyun is that he is willing to wager that Rice Cake will soon be able to begin flying with that. Rice Cake devours the premium meat with a gleeful expression. After Kanghyun comes to the realization that he has neglected something, he goes and gets a can of beer. Unfortunately, he is unable to taste anything, despite the fact that he claims that it is impossible to leave out alcohol when you have such an incredible view and meat. While Kanghyun is taking in the scenery, he is suddenly confronted by a person who places a sharp blade on his neck. Kanghyun is unable to move from his seat. Since those are artifacts that the watchman has never seen before, he claims that he does not appear to be from a nearby village because he has never seen them before. Inquiring as to whether he is a visitor or a scout from the outside, the man asks him. He inquires about Kanghyun's identity. Kanghyun is too scared to answer and thinks, "Who would have thought I would have to experience a sword being held to my throat?" He quietly says that he is a chef. He tries to justify himself and says he is not a suspicious person at all, but the man with the sword asks what a chef is doing here. Kanghyun tells him that he was just admiring the view. The man shouts at him and asks if he is admiring the view in a forest where the morning beast appears. The man puts his sword at Kanghyun's carotid artery. He could literally die if he moves an inch. The man tells Kanghyun that if he does not tell him what he came here to do, then anything can happen. The man notices the little wolf eating meat. However, Kanghyun is thinking about how to get out of this situation. He says that he can give him as much money as he wants, but then thinks if they do use a different currency here. But still, if he lets him live, he will exchange the money somehow. The man apologizes and says that since this is not a place where ordinary people can enter, he was being overly sensitive and puts his sword back. The man introduces himself as Randolph, a knight from the territory below. He asks Kanghyun for his name. Kanghyun introduces himself, but he is wondering why Randolph suddenly changed his attitude. Randolph tells him that the fact he is accompanied by a white wolf that only appears in folk tales means he is not a bad person. The white wolves are a race that has inherited the blood of the old god. They are said to be the descendants of the wolf god. It is said that the primordial wolf god possesses eyes that can distinguish between good and evil and great wisdom. The white wolf's race is said to have inherited some of his abilities, and such a white wolf is accompanying him. Kanghyun is surprised to know that and thinks that it explains all of Rice Cake's actions. And all of that was because he is a descendant of God. He also remembers how he was not going close to the head of the village. Randolph asks him if he was having a meal while looking at the lake and says the food he eats in a place like this is bound to feel more special. He asks what kind of meat this is. Kanghyun tells him that it is beef and offers him some. Randolph says even though he should say that he has already eaten, but the truth is he has not eaten anything yet. He thinks that he was only going to investigate, but he cannot resist a smell like this even if he had eaten. Randolph says that he will take only one bite. As soon as he puts meat in his mouth, he cannot believe its taste and thinks, how can it be this juicy? The meat is so tender that it melts in his mouth. There is no way he can find meat of this quality easily. Randolph notices the can in Kanghyun's hand and asks what it is. Kanghyun tells him that it is alcohol. Randolph is mesmerized by it and asks Kanghyun if it came from the area where he lives. Kanghyun offers him some, but Randolph says that he only asked because he was curious, but there is no need to refuse it since Kanghyun has placed it into his hands like this. Randolph realizes the taste and says it is beer, but he never thought that beer could taste this clean. Kanghyun thinks that Randolph's attitude is completely different from when he put a blade to his neck. Now he just looks like a foreigner who lives in the neighborhood. Randolph says now that Kanghyun has treated him to such great things, he cannot simply let him go empty-handed like this. He tells Kanghyun if he ever comes to the town, he should just say that he is looking for the Robentus Knight Captain Randolph. Kanghyun is surprised and confused after hearing this. However, Randolph thinks he is not even surprised after hearing his position. He is definitely not an ordinary person. He advises Kanghyun to be careful because you never know what might appear in this forest, but since he is with a white wolf, he will be fine and gives himself as he is on patrol. Kanghyun is shocked and thinks if it is okay to drink alcohol while working in this world. However, as Randolph leaves, Kanghyun gives all of the meat to Rice Cake as it is the last serving. Kanghyun remembers all of his memories with Rice Cake and thinks that now he had to leave it behind. It feels a little sad. Although it was a short time, he enjoyed it and thanks to it, he was able to make good cutlets. As he was about to leave, he says goodbye to the little puppy. He turns back to see if Rice Cake is going to bid farewell to him, but he is busy eating. Kanghyun is a little disappointed and says even though it was a little time, he thought it would have been a little more attached to him. He notices that Rice Cake is not there and he is clinging to his bag. He wonders why he is doing this right now. This is his hometown that he wanted to come back to. Why is he trying to follow him? He asks little Rice Cake if he preferred being with him. The baby wolf gets all excited and Kanghyun thinks that he has no choice but to bring him along, so he takes this cute little thing back with him. As he comes back to the village, he realizes that it means he has to keep going back to the other world periodically. Kanghyun notices that so many people are gathered in front of his house. The head of the village notices Kanghyun and says he is finally here. Kanghyun asks what everyone is doing here. The chief tells him that they are having a feast and asks Kanghyun if he has not heard about it. Kanghyun says not at all, but even if he had heard about it, he would not come anyway. Minho brings a banner that says, "Congratulations on joining the village, Seoul's Lee Kanghyun." The chief insists Kanghyun stay because it is a party to welcome him. All the villagers are thoroughly enjoying the feast. Some of them are admiring Kanghyun, which he finds a bit annoying. However, the painter and his wife manage to divert the attention away from him, providing him with some relief. Kanghyun asks them if it's a common practice to celebrate like this whenever a new person arrives in the town. They explain to him that it's a small town and they try to stay connected with each other. They assure him that it's not just about the love for drinking, but more about the sense of community. The village chief approaches Kanghyun and suggests that it's a good opportunity for him to let people know who he is. He even mentions that Kanghyun can promote his restaurant here. This surprises Kanghyun, and he wonders if the chief is trying to help him with his restaurant. After giving it some thought, Kanghyun agrees that it would be a good idea to advertise his restaurant. Meanwhile, the painter's wife is busy serving food to the villagers. While the other villagers are engrossed in their conversations, Kanghyun finds himself sitting alone, sipping his drink. He thinks to himself that it's not as bad as he had imagined. Suddenly, he realizes that rice cake is missing. He soon finds out that rice cake has been sneaking meat from the dishes of the villagers. He has eaten almost all of the steaks, leaving only the frozen meats behind. He seems to have a preference for the expensive ones. The painter asks Kanghyun if rice cake is his dog. Kanghyun, trying to hide his embarrassment, denies knowing rice cake and thinks to himself that he should have left him back there, all the emotional memories disappearing. Kanghyun notices a young boy sitting alone. He wonders if the boy Sung-hoo is sitting alone because he doesn't have any friends here. Soon after, Sung-hoo's grandmother brings something for him, but he throws it away and runs off. She explains to the village chief that Sung-hoo has been upset since he came back from school yesterday. His friend was bragging about eating a hamburger, and Sung-hoo has been throwing a tantrum about it since then. So she bought him a packaged hamburger, but it's not the same. One of the villagers suggests that if Sung-hoo wins from the store, he can buy a hamburger on his way back home tomorrow. But the chief clarifies that they don't sell hamburgers here. They sell them at MCDs. The village chief reassures Sung-hoo's grandmother that even if they don't sell hamburgers here, they can make them because they have a chef from Seoul, referring to Kanghyun. The chief apologizes to Kanghyun for the sudden request and explains that he is all they have got. He adds that the hamburger doesn't have to taste the same as the one from MCDs. He speculates that Sung-hoo probably doesn't want a hamburger. He is probably just jealous because his friend's family went out together. He reveals that Sung-hoo's mother is sick and lives in a hospital, and his father is outside the country because of his job, so the poor kid is just lonely. The chief also mentions that Sung-hoo is the only kid in their town, so they have to take care of him. Kanghyun reflects on this and realizes that he didn't understand the situation fully before. He appreciates that the chief knows everyone's situation and thinks that he might be a good person. Kanghyun tells them that he can easily make hamburgers even though he has never been to MCDs. He reveals that he is actually an exchange student from the birthplace of hamburgers, the United States of America. As rice cake has eaten all of the steaks, the villagers had to eat only the side dishes, so making hamburgers is the least Kanghyun can do for them. Kanghyun makes a hamburger and gives it to rice cake for testing. He had made it by looking at a picture, but as rice cake eats it, his tail is not wagging as fast as usual. Kanghyun recalls that he ate a lot of hamburgers while studying in the USA. He went to America with a love for cooking, which he now thinks was a bit naive. But he has never been that passionate about anything else. He loves cooking. Kanghyun wonders what his past self would think if he could see him now. However, he asks rice cake if he can eat more. This little thing is already excited again, with a seemingly bottomless stomach. Kanghyun ties his apron and gets ready to cook another hamburger. Kanghyun, the boy from Seoul, works his magic in the kitchen and creates a phenomenal hamburger. Sung-hoo, his grandmother, the painter, and his wife all wait eagerly at the restaurant. The painter mentions that it's been a while since he had a hamburger, but he notices that Kanghyun doesn't look very happy. He asks Kanghyun if he's not excited about finally getting to eat a hamburger. Sung-hoo is about to reply, but before he can, Kanghyun serves the hamburger in front of him. The hamburger looks like a piece of art, and Sung-hoo is mesmerized by it. He takes his first bite and feels like there are fireworks at Times Square in his mouth. He thinks that it's 100 times better than the convenience store one. Sung-hoo gets excited and tells his grandmother that it's good. His grandmother is glad that he's happy. However, Kanghyun suddenly gets sad and says he actually just wanted to see his mom. He thought he could go to Seoul where his mom is if he asked for a burger. That's why he said he wanted to try a burger. Sung-hoo's grandmother feels sorry for being rude. She hugs him and apologizes, saying she didn't even realize that. She pities him because he's so young, yet he has to live without his parents. Kanghyun tells them that he will soon be going to Seoul. He asks Sung-hoo if he wants to come along with him, and maybe they can also stop by the place he wanted to go, because he has never had a burger from there either. Sung-hoo gets excited and says he wants to go. Sung-hoo and his grandmother thank Kanghyun for this favor. Later on, Kanghyun is looking in his refrigerator. There are so many leftover ingredients. He thinks if they should go camping with these. He has never actually gone camping before, and he won't have time to go once the restaurant opens. As he looks at rice cake, he notices that he's looking at him with anticipation. Kanghyun asks him why he's looking at him like he said that he's going to the other world. He clarifies that he said he's going for camping, not to the other world. But somehow, they end up sitting in the middle of the enchanting forest of the other world. Kanghyun realizes that he has been here more times than he has been to the grocery stores. He has bought all of the necessary equipment for camping and tries to set up a camp. After trying multiple times, he is finally done. Boy realized that setting up a tent is harder than he thought, and now he is hungry, so he makes some food. And the smell of the food he made did few animals from the forest. The boy give these little animals some raw meat which they quite like. The boy was worried that it was going to be boring, but doing nothing like this can also be satisfying. The boy think that this is what they call healing. He suddenly think where did rice cake gone? But then he realize he will come back when he is hungry. The boy is sitting in his chair with a ball of delicious stew in his hand. He realize something is in the bushes behind him. He think that it is rice cake and ask him to get out as he has got plenty of it for him. But suddenly a hand came out of the bushes and tried to snatch the ball. The ball responded quickly and dots the attack. He can clearly see that it is not rice cake, but a very hungry girl with cat ears. Kanghyun found himself in a state of confusion, questioning whether the creature before him was a girl or a cat. He wondered if she was a hybrid, half human and half beast, like the characters he had seen in movies. However, this cat girl seemed angry, growling continuously and launching attacks on Kanghyun in an attempt to snatch the food from his hands. Kanghyun, preferring to resolve the situation peacefully, asked the girl if she was hungry. He offered her some food, hoping she would retreat. The girl sniffed at the stew and attempted to eat it. However, as she took her first bite, her mouth started burning from the spices. Kanghyun realized that the kimchi stew was actually quite spicy. Despite the initial shock, the girl seemed to appreciate the complex flavors of the stew and attempted to eat it again. Kanghyun thought that it must suit her taste. Just then, rice cake arrived. Kanghyun felt a twinge of disappointment, remarking that rice cake had returned just in time for his meal and could have come a bit earlier. Kanghyun told rice cake that he would heat up the kimchi stew for him. However, the little pup was not very patient and attacked the cat girl who was eating his food. Kanghyun tried to calm him down, assuring him that his food was right there. The cat girl also got angry and tried to attack rice cake. As Kanghyun was struggling to calm them down, another cat hybrid emerged from the forest. He was a handsome, muscular man with cat ears. He apologized to Kanghyun, picked up the cat girl, and took her back into the forest. Kanghyun was surprised at how many different races lived in this area. Later, Kanghyun was cleaning his restaurant a day before its grand opening. He thought that even though he had come here to relax, he might have played around too much. Now that he had decided to open a business, he felt he should prepare thoroughly. The remodeling had been completed, the ingredients were prepared, and the cleaning would soon be done. Kanghyun thought that his preparations were perfect, and he was ready to have the most flawless opening the next day. Just then, an old woman entered the restaurant and asked if they were open. Kanghyun told her that they would be open the next day, but invited her to have a seat. The lady observed the restaurant and commented that the place was still the same. Kanghyun asked her if she had been there when it used to be a tea house. Very cold in her demeanor. However, Kanghyun was still standing beside the table, his gaze fixed on the plate of pasta. The chief was surprised and asked if she had actually eaten, but then why had she left so much food untouched? Kanghyun, on the other hand, was on the verge of tears, wondering what the problem could be.